Stool, because obviously I'm a little short. I'd like everyone to take a seat. I know we have people in the other room too. They might be coming on in. I have a few housekeeping rules, and then we will get on with our show. But number one, if you need to use a restroom, they're out those doors to the left and down the hall. You'll find them. Sorry, I just dropped my mic. There we go. If you have phones, which you all do, please put them on vibrate or turn them off. I prefer not to have them ringing while our speakers are talking. We will have a break after each speaker. We'll have our first speaker, a 10-minute break, and then we'll have our second speaker, and then we have lunch from 12 to 1. Be back in the room by 1:15. You can eat here also. This is a dual-purpose room today. Eat, listen, and connect. And after each session, we also will have somebody with a mic that will go around if you have any specific questions. And if we can't get to all the questions, you can email us and we will contact the speaker to get those questions answered. It's going to be a quick day, and I'm so glad everybody got a chance to come today. So thank you for RSVPing. Welcome to our 15th anniversary event. We've been doing this for 15 years. My name is Rochelle Costner. I am the president of the Cancer Survivorship Northwest Board, also known as CSNW, the umbrella nonprofit for PCCSC, a lot of letters here, Pierce County Cancer Survivorship Conference. I've also been a part of this for 14 of the 15 years. I've been involved with imaging company, TRA Medical Imaging and Diagnostic Imaging for 14 years. So it's been an honor to be a part of this community and to provide resources. We could not do this event without our sponsors. You've probably been watching the PowerPoint presentation. So I would like a round of applause for all of our sponsors and exhibitors. I would like to... Sorry, I talk with my hands. I'd like to do a shout out to our presenting sponsors. Multi-Care Regional Cancer Center, Virginia Mason Franciscan Health, and the University of Puget Sound. Representing UPS, I'd like to introduce Victor Martin. He's the Vice President for University Relations since July of 2022, pretty new in the area. He comes to us from California State University, Bakersfield. I think the weather's a little different down there. So I'm hoping he's enjoying his time up here at the Pacific Northwest. Please welcome Victor, and let's thank UPS again for their generosity for this location.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much, Rochelle. Thanks to all of you for being here. I'll do my best not to knock the microphone off while I'm speaking. We very much appreciate and welcome the fact that the conference is being held on the University of Puget Sound and is celebrating its 15th anniversary. So congrats to you all. Welcome to our campus. As was mentioned, my name is Victor Martin. I'm the Vice President for University Relations here at the university. And basically in that capacity, I oversee elements of community engagement, fundraising, alumni and parent relations, marketing and communications for the institution. And it's an honor to continue to welcome groups like yourself to our campus. As was mentioned, I moved here just short of a year ago from California State University, Bakersfield. But prior to that, the thing that drew me to Bakersfield from the Chicagoland area was actually the opportunity to come in as a consultant and help build a cancer center in Bakersfield. I had just lost my father to lung cancer, and it was a passion project for me and an opportunity where I saw the need in a community that didn't have a lot of cancer care resources and sadly had higher rates of cancer than the rest of the state of California, and in many cases higher than the national average. So after a couple of years working on that project, I raised enough money to help build a cancer center. I went into higher ed. And so it feels a little bit full circle now to come to University of Puget Sound, where You may not know this stat, but more than 80% of our graduates who apply to medical school are accepted, and that's more than double the national average. So we like to think of ourselves as an institution that has a really strong core in the sciences, but you get a well-rounded liberal arts education and experience in the process. And we have all kinds of degrees you might not know, like neuroscience and biology and biochemistry and chemistry and mathematics, that all lend themselves well to those who end up living and working in and around the medical field to help fight and prevent things like cancer. So very proud to be here now, very proud to welcome all of you to our campus, and I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day. You have a wonderful list of speakers that are presenting today who will probably be far more interesting than I was, but please know if there's anything we can do to make your experience here better, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Have a wonderful day, and back to Rochelle.
So I'm excited to introduce our first speaker. Her name is Rosanne Carter. Rosanne is a breast cancer survivor. Her story starts when she was just 40 years young, a wife and mother of 2 young children. Rosanne integrated her love for creating community and promoting awareness by publicly sharing her story on social media. Today, she will share her story about vulnerability and challenges. Please welcome Rosanne as she speaks on the 6 A's to protecting your peace and creating meaning along the way.
Just sit right there. Oh, here's your clicker. You're good to go. So many fun gadgets. Good morning. Thank you. Good morning. It's so good to see everybody. This is my first in-person in 3 years. And I have to say, yeah, the energy is so different than Zoom. And I was just thinking about that on the drive here, how I was actually getting emotional because I can feel your energy and it feels so different than being on screen. So thank you for coming this morning. It's an honor to be able to be here and to be in community with all of you. When I was asked to speak, the part that I was so excited about was the in community. As survivors, as caregivers, community is so important. Only I don't think I knew that till I was 5 years out. So for today, I'm not talking at you, I'm talking with you. My hope today is that this is not a training, but this is an opportunity to gather and be in community and have conversation together. Being in community means shared communication. So while I can't be at the table with you, I really would much prefer that. I invite you to participate by nodding your head, giving up snap, tapping on the table, shouting, "I see you." But doing all of that, because being in community means we see each other, we hear each other, and already I feel not alone being up here. So today we're co-creating a brave space for meaningful work, meaningful shift to happen for all of us. Okay. Fancy outline, I'm not going to read through it, but there's one check-in that's really, really important to me. As a survivor, as a therapist, as someone in community with you, it's really important to me that you pay attention to what you need today, okay? It's important that you take care of yourself today. We've all been through a lot. Not just cancer, not just caregiving, we've been through a lot. So when something is shared, you feel something in your body, notice that, listen to that, and take care of yourself, because no one else is going to remind you, other than me, and you. You know your body. Listen, if you need a drink, you need to step out, you need some air, listen to your body and do what you need. That was a lifelong lesson for me, and I preach it now. So please take care of yourself throughout the entire day. All right, here we go. So, a little bit about survivorship. Look how much you've already managed to adapt to. Look how resilient you've already been. There's no right way to respond to this because it's never, ever happened before. Give yourself some credit. There's no one in the whole world who has this figured out yet. So it's absolutely okay if you don't either. We don't have it figured out, and even when we do, we're surprised the next day, right? We don't have all the answers. So a little bit about my story. In 2017, we had just moved. My husband and 2 children, 4 and 7, we just moved to a brand new home, super excited to start a new chapter in our life. We moved in August 2017, and in the end of August, I actually found a lump. Being a mom, a working mom, I kind of ignored it for a little bit. Like, it'll go away, and it didn't. And so my husband finally said, when are you going to take care of you? We need you to take care of you so that you can help us take care of us. And so I made the appointment in October 2017. I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I'm not going to go through the whole story, but I had a double mastectomy, chemo, radiation, and during that time, my husband's father unexpectedly passed away. So that was October 2017. Fast forward 5.5 years till today. But between that time, I've had countless surgeries year after year after year. For those of you that have had breast cancer or know someone with breast cancer, there's a lot of reconstruction surgeries involved if you choose to reconstruct. So this finally ended for me in April 2022 because I decided that I was going to explant, and what that means is taking my implants out because I needed to heal from the inside out. I, throughout the whole time, had made my journey a public one, meaning on Facebook, I shared my story, shared the overwhelm, the feelings, the emotions. I journaled publicly. For me, that was healing. For me, that also was supporting other people. The feedback I received was, thank you for sharing your story. I know somebody else who went through this. My own mother went through this, story after story, and they did not share their story, so I had no idea what they're going through. So thank you for opening my eyes to someone new, or a new lesson, new learning. This is helping me help my family, help my friends. All that feedback that I got was so helpful. It was helpful to let others in and not live in secret and hiding, and to be able to be open and open wide. And I poured myself into that. I kept working, and there was something so healing. And the more I did it, the more feedback I got, the more people said, you should write a book. I have not written a book. I won't write a book. I do not want to write a book. And then the asks, the inquiries started coming in. What do I say to my family or friends that have cancer? I want to do a care package. What do I put in the care package? And the requests came in often, multiple, week after week. And I think many of you may be able to resonate with this, but when they said, what do I say? I said, well, here's what not to say. Do not say, let me know if you need anything. We will not ask. We will not tell you what we need. Instead, offer what you can, and we'll take what we need, right? And the ask for care packages came so often that I had a list that I copy and pasted over and over and over again. It was healing and cathartic until it wasn't. It became a little bit traumatic for me, because I had gone through so much loss over time. So then I had to ask myself, well, what does it mean to really heal from the inside out? I looked, I researched, nobody tells you, so I had to figure it out on my own. So then it became about this quest of protecting my peace, your peace. Peace. It does not mean to be in a place where there's no noise, trouble, or hard work. It means to be in the midst of those things and still be calm in your heart. I wanted this so badly, so deeply, and I wasn't sure how to find it. So, as a therapist myself, the irony, I used to work with families and children with cancer. As a therapist, I had to ask, as a therapist working with young children and families, I support families with talking about feeling, understanding behavior, understanding why children do what they do, understanding communication. And with that came understanding human needs. So this is where I started. So when I work with children and families, we talk a lot about social emotional needs. Social emotional development. What that means really is navigating your own emotion, your own feeling, understanding your feeling, and how to navigate the world around you. That's what that means, and that starts from infancy. But then when I looked at the needs of the things that I was telling parents that children need, I thought, these are human needs. We all have a need to feel safe and secure. We all have a need to feel worthy and loved. We all have a need to feel acknowledged and understood. We all have a need to feel noticed and receive attention. We all have a need to feel a sense of predictability. We all have a need to understand and be able to manage our upset feelings. We all have a need to feel a sense of control. We all have a need to feel safe and stimulated in my or our exploration. We all have a need to feel competent. And we all have a need to have mutually enjoyable relationships and this sense of belonging, this sense of community. Well, it made so much sense now while things felt really hard. Cancer took a lot of that away. A lot of that sense of predictability, control, all those things was really hard to have those needs met. So what happens when you have unmet needs? Well, then it feels like you're pouring from an empty cup. So this is where I started thinking about how do I protect my peace? Protecting my peace means making sure that all these needs are met. Maybe not all at one time, but when I notice something coming up for me, I kind of check back to that list. This is what's missing. How do I get that need met? So I started with attitude of gratitude. Now, I know there's tons of research out there, tons of journals, gratitude journals, there's all kinds of things out there on gratitude. But I had it all wrong. I thought I had it figured out. Well, of course I know what gratitude is. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my medical team. I'm grateful for the SCCA, all these different things. But really what I learned, and I remember the very moment that I learned what gratitude truly is. I was probably on my 5th round of chemo, nauseous, not feeling well, in bed, exhausted, tired, and had this moment of, I just want to be done. And then this aha moment. Oh, I feel this way because the chemo's working. I'm supposed to feel like this. I'm on my way to feeling better. So slowing down and pausing is really important. Whether you're a survivor, caregiver, the way we move through the world, in this world anyway, we're so caught up in the everyday, the day-to-day, that the slowing down is really hard. But here's what I've learned. Urgency interrupts a lot of things. When we are urgent and in a hurry to move, we forget to slow down and notice what we need, what our bodies need. So what do you notice and observe around you? What brings you calm? How do we start with a small thing? So that's where gratitude came in. Instead of thinking about, well, what are the things I'm grateful for? I started really small. Started with what am I grateful for in the last 24 hours? So instead of this big, wide thing, it really had to have happened for me in the last 24 hours. Maybe a warm bath, maybe a good night's sleep, maybe a hug from someone else, a cup of coffee, a shower. I actually got out of bed, right? Starting with those really small things. And the more I did this, the more I was able to actually recognize it all around me, where I didn't have to work so hard. The second A is affection. Those of you that have kids, well, let me read this quote first. So we need 4 hugs a day for survival. We need 8 hugs a day for maintenance. And we need 12 hugs a day for growth. This was said by Virginia Satir, another well-known family therapist. So how many of you know of any children who they ask for hugs or snuggles? Okay? It feels good. They love it because they know that it feels good. It feels really, really good. Not only to be on the receiving end, but to be on the giving end. So here's what we know about hug and what science says. Science says hugs reduce blood pressure. Science says hugs lower your cortisol. That's the stress hormone that we have. Science says hugs increases social connections and a sense of belonging. Kids got it right. Any guesses, feel free to shout it out. How long, based on science, is a good hug?
30 seconds.
Anybody else?
25 seconds. I'm going to say 15.
20 seconds. 20 seconds. We got some close answers. So 20 seconds. And now when I share this with my children, that really stuck. So my kids are now 12 and a half and 9 and a half. My 9.5-year-old, she listens to everything. I mean, not everything, but she really just takes on to what I say. And so anytime she can see that maybe I'm having a bad day or I'm overwhelmed, distressed, she'll come over and give me a hug, but she'll count out loud. 1, 2, 3. And dang, 20 seconds feels like a really long time when you do that. And so hugs are really important. Affection is really important. And equally important, if you are somebody that lives by yourself or you don't have access to people with you on a day-to-day, science also says giving compliments brings out the same and releases the same kind of good things. Reducing blood pressure, lowering your cortisol, and increasing social connection. Have you ever been on the receiving end of a compliment? It feels really good. Science shows that when you give them out, it feels really good. It sounds so easy, but honestly, how many of us do it on a regular basis? We don't. So try that. See what happens. The third A is accomplishment. So set yourself up for success by creating opportunities for small wins. Write a checklist of simple things you know you can accomplish. Okay, so I don't know how many of you do this, but I do. If I have a to-do list and I do something that's not on that list, I add it to the list so I can check it out. Anybody else do that? Yes. Okay, because it feels good. You can see the thing that you did and you checked it off. This sense of accomplishment. So, and also what I mean by accomplishment, it doesn't mean the big things. I'm going to clean out the attic. That's too big and too much, right? Kind of like gratitude. Really think about the small things that you can accomplish. So is it, I'm going for a walk today. I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. Even if that's something you always do, it can be on the list because guess what? You did something for you. You took care of yourself. So writing simple things that you can accomplish is really important, even if they're things you already do on the day-to-day, because I think sometimes we do forget how we care for ourselves or the small ways that we do care for ourselves. All right. Our fourth A is the activity. Move your body, change your mind. I'm not talking about exercise. Exercise, yes, is important, but I'm not just talking about that. Because here's what we know about emotion. Emotions are energy. Emotion, when not moving your body, is stuck energy. Okay, this is really, really important. We have energy all around us and through us and all of that. And so when we do not move, I mean, how many of us sit down a lot in our jobs, in our work, in our day-to-day, we sit. There's a lot of stuck energy that doesn't get shifted around or moved. It's really important to think about how am I moving myself in a way that aligns with how I feel. So maybe you don't feel great and you don't want to walk and you don't want to do jumping jacks or whatever it is. Well, then what is possible? Can you sit and breathe? Can you meditate? Can you stretch? Here's something that my dad does all the time. He sways. That's moving. You're moving back and forth. Can you rock? Okay? What are some ways that you can move your body that aligns with how you feel, right? How do we move through that emotion tunnel? How do we get through the end of the tunnel and not be stuck? Sometimes when there's stuck energy, we don't move, we're stuck in that tunnel. So kind of envision that tunnel for yourself, moving yourself from the beginning and all the way through to the end. This can also be added on your accomplishment list, right? So I will move in a way that feels good for me today. What does that look like? What feels good for you today will look different tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So I will move in a way that feels good for me today. It's a great checklist, a great item to add to your checklist. That could be part of gratitude. Today, I got to move in this way. Okay, this is where I need all of you to really lean in and participate. You can shout out, you can share, you can not, you can, all the things. But this is, to me, one of the most important aids to protecting your peace. Awareness, self-awareness. Learn what sets off your lack of peace. Your fear, your worry, or your anxiety. Ask not what's wrong with me. I've been there. I've asked myself that. What's wrong with me? Why can't I just get out of, why can't I, why other people are doing it better, right? We're not asking that anymore. What's happening for me? Because what's happening for me creates a lot of empathy, understanding, and compassion. Because what's happening for you is, if you think back to that list that we talked about, there's an unmet need. Something is happening for you that's setting off your lack of peace. Notice what's going on for you physically and emotionally. And reflect on your unmet needs, right? So here I have a picture of a gas gauge. Okay, so imagine a tank, right? We all have this kind of tank inside us, or a cup. Let's be in community here and really think about, what does a full tank you look like? All right, let's think about what I mean by full tank. What does your energy look like? What does your tone of voice look like? How's your creativity? What does a full tank you look like? How do you show up at work? How do you show up at home? How do you show up with your friends, your partner, your family? I do want to pause because I think it's important to share and throw out some answers. And maybe instead of shouting out, because I can track, maybe raise your hand and then, and then shout out so we can see you. But what does a full tank you look like? I'll start with me. Full tank me, I'm excited to get out of bed. I have a lot of energy. I want to move, but moving for me might feel like a great walk or a bike ride or a run, because that aligns with my energy. I feel creative. I've got lots of ideas about what I want to do for work. With my children, I have a lot more patience, a lot more compassion, tolerance. My window of tolerance is so much greater. That's a full tank me. What does a full tank you look like?
I want to say something not so much about a full tank, but a doctor told me this once. Once you get done with cancer and you're cancer-free, or you're maintaining your thing, that may not be your 100% you used to be, but that might be your new 100%. So maybe you're only at 80% of what you used to be, but that's your new 100. You may never reach that before cancer thing.
Yeah.
Never. But you might be, this is my 80%, but this is my new 100. This is where I am now. This is what I'm going to base my goodness on, rather than looking at, I can never do that again.
Right.
That kind of stuff. You just find things you can do. Like, I can't do a lot of walking and that kind of stuff with my hip, but I could row a kayak all over the place. So that's what I do. I can't get in and out of it very easily, but I could roll out of it at the end of the day, and it fits in my car. So I don't have to put it up on top of it. I put it out on my shoulder, and I just kind of drop it on some grass because it's a piece of crap, but it gives me a rest.
Yeah,
So 100
Yeah.
to that 80%. But that may be for the rest of your life, and then maybe you will get back to that 100, but you're always right there.
I love that. Thank you. Did everyone hear that? Yeah? Okay, thank you. I don't know if it's helpful to have a mic to go around, or...
How long is the session? Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, just a thought. I want to make sure everyone can hear everybody. Yes, I love that. So this idea of not thinking about where you were before you had cancer and where you are now, but that where you are now, that is your 100%. I love that. Thank you.
I guess your full tank. Oh, I don't need that. Right now, my 100% or my full tank is being able to make a dinner and enjoy it, because I can get breakfast, but then it goes downhill. But if I have a good day, it's dinner. Simple things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
So it's funny that you said the 80% thing, because I've been telling my friends and family I am 70% Tiffany or 80% old Tiffany. But I've worked a lot on giving myself grace, and this is what my new full tank is, and this is what I can do now. But the person I used to be was full of energy and could go and do, but the new me listens to my body more and understands what I'm capable of in this moment. But I've been working on filling up and taking little steps to be more creative, be more social, just build my energy up and do things that give me the little steps in the day for happiness.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you.
I don't need the mic.
I'll tell you that right now. I don't need it.
Can't hear you.
There are two things I'd like to say, just as this young lady was speaking, and I thought about that full tank, and I'm old, I'm of a certain age, okay? I'll be 68 here in a couple of months. I know, but I wasn't supposed to be here. But the thing is if you've ever had an older car, sometimes the gas gauge changes and you don't know. So you are still filled up. You haven't changed. The gas tank hasn't changed. The needle has changed. So if we look at it from that perspective, it might just be another way to get through it. But there's something else I want to say in this idea of worry and fear and all of these triggers. Fear is a natural emotion. Okay? We get fearful. Worry, however, is a behavior. Fear is just emotion. Worry is the lie that we allow fear to tell to us. So, I'm going to die in 6 months. I got told that. Okay? And I still live with cancer. I have stage 4 neuroendocrine cancer. You're going to die in 6 months to a year, 2 if you're lucky. For 2 years, I woke up every morning and said, is today the day? Every night, I went to bed going, oh my God, am I going to wake up? On day 1 of year 3, I woke up and I went, I didn't die. And I had this, and I live alone, so I talk to myself a lot. And all of a sudden, I thought to myself, I have wasted a little bit of every single day worrying about something that never happened. The reality is, folks, we're all dying. Okay? And some of us have this diagnosis, and we worry about that. And it's a lie. Because here I am, 11 years later, 11 years later, I still have the same stage 4 cancer. There is still no cure for what I have. There is no chemo for what I have. So it's up to me to get up every single day and live. I don't call myself a survivor. I've told some of you I don't like that term. I'm a warrior. We're all warriors, We survived the birth canal. Right? We're not supposed to survive that. It's not designed for us to fit something, right? It's just the way it is, right? So I just want, I say that, and I don't want to take up too much time. I apologize because I have a tendency to do that. I'm very shy and hard to talk to. I just want to encourage others to learn what sets off that thing that takes you from the natural reaction, the fear, and puts us into worry and anxiety, which is really what takes away our peace.
I call that making up a story.
Yeah,
You're making up a story about something that hasn't happened yet.
yeah, and so anyway, I just wanted to share that, and I didn't even want to talk about myself at that point, but that piece of it is just something that I think is important for us to all really learn.
Yeah.
So I apologize for disagreeing with you there.
No. This is what community is about. It's about sharing perspective. And worry is, if you put worry in an equation, worry equals uncertainty plus the underestimation of our ability to cope, right? Yeah, so anxiety or worry equals uncertainty, so the unknown, plus the underestimation of our ability to cope, right? So how will I do this? How will I survive? How will I, am I going to die? Thank you for sharing your story, right?
Well, we also have to look at what are my options. See, once
What?
we understand what the fear is I'm going to die in 6 months. What are my options? Because
Yeah.
once you know how to face whatever it is, now you get to, you go back into the head instead of the emotion.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you for sharing. Other thoughts? Oh, in the back.
I just want to say that we're all dying, like everybody in the world is dying, we're born to die. So you can't live in that fear and just focus on today, but we're talking about earlier, being present and present. And I want to say that my full take is when I get up in the morning and I have energy to go hiking and spend time in nature, which was one of my healers. I don't do chemo or any of that. I've done some radiation, but nature is my healer. I'm still here 6 years out. I was told I had a year to a year and a half to live, and I'm still here. A new view every time something gets taken, because everything is going to get taken, and if you just find something else and just keep going, that 60%, that 70%, that 80%, take it and make it what you want it to be. And you may not want it in a moment, but you'll learn to read into a new life.
Thank you for sharing. Other thoughts, reactions, emotions, things that are staying with you that resonate with you?
I have a friend who had a mastectomy, a double mastectomy, and she decided she was going to do an implant. Worked really hard to try to get that implant to work, and it didn't work. So I was at a cancer camp in Montana recently, and she and some other flatties decided to streak. And after that, I went to
This is a 10-minute.
I had find it the year before it grew, and then a couple of years after it grew. We always talked about not seeing Helen being so beautiful. And then after it grew, we went, she is different now. And then gradually you begin to see she is beautiful still. So, flatties are beautiful.
Thank you. We have one in the back.
Good morning to all. Such a pleasure to see a community of love. We've all shown up, and indeed we are present. So grateful to hear all the stories and those that haven't been told yet. Regardless, my full take was waking up today. That I have breath in my body. not taking for granted, but having an attitude of gratitude. Knowing my body, my spirit, my mind, and the value that I hold. I'm feeling what I'm saying. I won't stand up because I might go to that place of the tears, but hopefully in my voice, you hear the energy that I have of life. It's about life. We have all fought, and in some form of fashion, to be here in this moment in time. It's about the moment. And I hear, I see. I'm even experiencing nonverbal communications. We'll all sit today at the round table or in the restroom or whatever that might be. I've been in this room several times. It started with me in 2011. And now, fast forward to 2023. In the Capitol, I was third stage, 2011. And now I'm terminal. I see you now over there. I saw you. We're sisters. We're all sisters. We're all connected. Either we know someone who has gone through this, or we experience it ourselves, or we can't. All that happens to me, I heard fear, even us sharing this conversation and saying the energy situation that we all go through. I don't know if I can hang until 2 o'clock. Regardless, we'll all talk about it in some form or fashion. And to say this fear, we've heard this. And you've probably heard this. Fear is an acronym for false evidence appearing in the real. How do you flip the script? It's a mindset to fight whatever is coming into from outside. It's an internal job. Survivor, thriver. I feel you over there, sister, but I look at it as I'm a thriver. I'm trying to. What have the professionals said about me? But the bottom line is, what do I say to myself? I want to live. I am here, breath in my body, because I'm on assignment. Yes, it is that we're all going to pass. So as we come into this world, so shall we leave this world. But what do we do in the gap? And it's no one else's, it's ours. And when we understand, when we work on understanding that, it's a baby step kind of thing. What do we do in the gap? So I feel like change body, spirit, mind. I make sure I'm moving. And yes, I love to dance in the moment. I really do. Put on some good music. You know, it's fun. It works all that stuff out. Being active, you know. Follow your treatment plan. You know? And the biggest pill to me, and I'll end here, and thank you so much for your time, because I am not a talker. Really, is love. It's all the foundation, which is love. Love yourself, love others. What you put out there, it comes back to you. Thank you. Enjoy this.
Thank you. Thank you. This is such a joy and honor to be in this space and for collective wisdom together. And so my hope is that you walk away and take the parts of this that resonate with you, aligns with you, stories from other people, shared wisdom from other people, because this is what being part of a community is about. The last A is acceptance. All right, take a moment. Accepting ourselves in the moment, just as we are, means honoring that we are imperfect as humans, as survivors, as caregivers, as warriors, as parents, as who we are. This means understanding that missteps are a natural part of learning. It means recognizing that we all have limitations and vulnerabilities, and when we understand this and embrace it, we can choose to treat ourselves with kindness, encouragement, and love. Loving ourselves as we are helps us recognize that in any given moment, we are doing the best we can with what we have. Thank you for being in community with me today. This right here is a lifelong lesson for all of us. I'm still working on healing. Healing, there's no end point. Healing is lifelong. And healing is what it means for you, what it means for me. Thank you for being here, for honoring yourselves today, and for being in community. I love you deeply, and I wish you well in the next chapter of your healing journeys. Thank you.
Okay. Let's thank Rosanne again. Thank you, Rosanne.
I know we're called the Cancer Survivorship Conference, but yes, warrior, thriver, friends, resources, we're all with you above. So thank you again for being here. We would like to mention that these will all be on our website. It's being videotaped, so take pictures is fine, because it'll be on the website. Give it a few days, a week, but they'll be there on the website. And I believe you can also probably watch the live video again. It'll be on our website, or on the Facebook page. So thank you. See you back at 11 o'clock for our next speaker. Take a break.
So Dr. Emily Stevens is a hematologist and oncologist from Northwest Medical Specialties. She focuses on evidence-based individualized care and considers the whole person, I should just do this and not have to read, right? She focuses on evidence-based individualized care that considers the whole person and has special interest in cellular therapies, immuno-oncology, and precision oncology, and has been active in the oncology and cancer research since 1998. Let's welcome Dr. Stevens, who will be speaking on biomarkers, precision oncology, and the personalized approaches to treatment decisions. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm just going to make sure I understand how this works. It moves it here, but it doesn't move it there.
Okay, try it again. Okay, there we go.
Okay, great. So again, thank you all for being here. As you can imagine, this talk can get a little dry. So I do want a lot of feedback. I want to hear your questions. I want to hear your thoughts. And I think this type of a get-together is a perfect opportunity for me to learn from you all what you need, what's missing from the care. And I want... Sorry, I didn't hear that. Snoring doesn't count. Yeah. The other part about precision oncology and personalized medicine or personalized approaches, that word gets thrown around a lot. And from my perspective, it's not really personalized. It's about a person is more than what their tumor looks like. And I think that is a big part of what it means in general. And I'm trying to pull that out and understand it from you all. So, some questions I want you to consider as I go through this. Who's comfortable with the uncertainty? Unknown. Yeah. And what about if it's uncertainty about your health? Even more uncomfortable, right? And are any of us certain about what the diagnosis is, about what the treatment is, the best treatment? It implies a black or white, a yes or no, right? And then I think the most important part is there's all kinds of data in science and all of that that goes into some of these decisions. But ultimately, what choices are out there or what choice is best for you or any individual patient is largely based on what your goals and what your values are. And no one can know that but you. And so that's ultimately what I mean by personalized approaches. Oh. Let me see. Okay. It's okay, I'll just move it here too. So what's the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is to find the correct drug at the correct dose in the correct dosing schedule for the right patient, right? And there's a dichotomy here because how we develop drugs to put them all on the market to be available to you all is kind of at odds with what your personal decisions are. So for example, in drug development, we start with a drug and then we look to see what's the best dose and then we look to see which patients are we targeting. And the goal is to figure that out to maximize the efficiency and limit toxicity. In clinical oncology, we start with the patient. We start with the person, and then we go forward. And so if you're coming at the problem from these two different sides, you can imagine that all the data in the world may not always fit with what you need for decision making. Sorry, it's not connecting. Yeah, it either goes here or there.
Can we hook it for you?
That's weird.
Is it the resume slideshow?
All right, try it again.
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems to be there.
Yeah, that's all right. We'll just try this.
Can you work with that? Okay.
I'll try and do it this way. Okay, so what are the choices that you have to make? This is just a laundry list, and I did it to actually give you an example of just how many choices there are. So there's the chemotherapy, there's surgery, there's radiation. There's also hormone therapy, there's immunotherapy, there's now small molecule inhibitors, and then there's molecules that combine the two. So antibody drug conjugate. We take an immunotherapy and we put a chemotherapy on it and we hit you on both sides, right? So there's all these different complexities.
Can I ask a question?
Yes?
Why so many doctors, when they do a treatment, it's called protocol? You have to do this protocol. Everybody is stuck in this protocol. You get the same drug that this guy over here weighs 350 pounds, and I weigh 150 pounds. Why is that it's protocol? And your insurance won't pay for it unless you do the protocol that's demanded for your treatment. Why is this protocol that specific that everybody's doing the same thing? But yet I weigh 150 pounds less than this guy over here.
Yeah, it's a great question. The main reason, and there's a slide coming up that will explain how do drugs get approved. No, it means I think I am going in the right direction. So, but in general, we have to do these very strict studies. And so, for example, if you wanted to know, does eating an apple every day improve my mental health? You would eat the apple every day for a period, and then you wouldn't eat the apple, and then you would compare the two. But then there's all these other variables, maybe it was raining on the days you didn't eat the apple. All of those kinds of things. So they try and control for all of that, and that's part of the start with a drug and find the right people, as opposed to start with the person to find the right drug. Yeah.
I'm going to advance this while you advance that. So whatever slide you're on here, I'll just make sure this matches.
Okay. So going into even more details, these are just the small molecule inhibitors that have been approved since 2001. So in 2001, the very first small molecule, there's a problem with a cell, here's a drug that hits that problem, was a drug called imatinib. I remember being at the meeting when this information was first presented. It was amazing. And look at how many have opened up just in the last 20-some years. So the options are enormous. No, this doesn't.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I know.
Why isn't that? Okay, something.
Maybe if I don't use this, can we just use that and control it?
Let's try that, yeah. Let's try that next.
And what I normally do is hit that slideshow.
Yeah.
Yes, that should work.
There we go. I think, yep. Go back. Oh, yeah. Try the thing. I think I had it. There we go.
There we go. Okay. Yet another option is now you have all those different choices. Now we can also combine them in all different ways and give you multiple drugs all at once in a protocol, but all of them at once. So now you literally have infinite number of options. So how are we going to start to just narrow in on what's best? So let's try to figure out, I know, it works. So the ultimate goal really is how do we simplify the choice? How do we make it make the most sense for the individual patient without it being just this mind-blowing number of options and things to consider? So I don't know how many of you used to play with the toy, that magic 8-ball, and you would turn it over. It was kind of like pull the daisy petals off, right? So how can we get to that point of making this decision, or at least closer? So how a drug works is so incredibly complicated. So there are the properties of the drug itself. How tightly does it hit the target? Is it stable in your blood system? How potent is it? What's the mechanism of action? Are we blocking a receptor? Are we activating a receptor? And then once we get the drug in your body, does it go to where it needs to go? Is it only in the bloodstream? How does it get to the lung or the liver or wherever it needs to go? How do your kidneys and your liver get rid of it? Oops. And then how much blood supply does your tumor get? And then how quickly are your tumor cells growing? And then once the drug gets into the cell has to bring it inside. It usually has to break down the drug, and the drug has to go to the target inside the cell. All of these things matter. So we start very simple. I have a drug. I have a cell that has a target. The target expression should matter, right? Patient's tumor has to have the target, otherwise why would the drug work? Well, it turns out when I measure target expression, it's not necessary and it's not sufficient to predict which tumors or which patients will have a good response to a cancer drug. It's so much more complex than that. And that's the case even for these targeted drugs. A drug that was designed to hit a very specific protein. For example, HER2, many of you have heard of that. A drug is designed to hit that protein. That protein has to be there, right, for the drug to work. As we start to really ask the question and say, well, what happens if I give it to somebody who doesn't have HER2? It's turning out to not be what we think. So why is this part of it? It's all of the complexities that I just talked about, but it's also, we start off by adding a drug to cells in a dish, and then we give it to an animal, and we do all of these different things. And it turns out humans are not just big mice, right? And so there's a lot of it that is just different. Their kidneys, their liver, how they absorb the drug, how fast their heart beats. They often will put a human tumor inside a mouse. That's not a normal way that a tumor develops. For a mouse to take a human tumor, we have to inactivate the immune system. That's not a natural system either, right? So there's lots of reasons why this system doesn't quite give us the results we're expecting. So one of the ways is biomarkers. The most obvious one is the target. HER2, measure HER2, and that's where the drug is. There's also tumor markers in general. EGFR, PD-L1, CEA, all of these things are just a measurement of tumors, and none of them are necessary or sufficient, and each patient and each tumor responds differently. You can also just take vital signs. A patient comes into clinic and their heart rate is always high. Is that patient going to respond the same way to somebody who comes in and their heart rate is always low? All of these variables play a role, right? Which therapies were they exposed to before I gave them this drug? What about a biomarker that predicts progression, or a biomarker that predicts susceptibility? So for example, BRCA, that predicts that you're more likely to have a second tumor. What should we do about that? Predictive of the treatment effect. If this biomarker is present, whatever that biomarker is, it's more likely or less likely that the patient would respond to this treatment. And then there's also disease monitoring. So over time, what happens to this as we either treat or withhold treatment? And then the most important thing when it comes down to protocol and why the rules exist the way they do is there are diagnostic biomarkers. So for example, that imatinib drug in 2001, CML, chronic myelogenous leukemia, was a diagnosis we used all the time, and it was just too many white cells. And then they found this drug and they said, oh, but some of the patients have this mutation where this gene ABL and gene BCR are fused together and it makes a novel protein. So now CML is defined by you have to have that. Before, that was not even the diagnosis. And now they said, okay, that's how you diagnose it. And when you have that very specific test that says, yes, it's this diagnosis, or no, it's this diagnosis, that determines whether or not a patient will get it. That is called a companion diagnostic. That is a test that determines whether or not a patient can receive a drug, or at least whether their insurance company would pay for the drug, right? Yeah. So trastuzumab, as a basic example. So it was noted that breast tumors that have this HER2 protein that grew faster than other breast cancer cells. And so they designed an antibody. An antibody is a protein in your blood system that kind of looks like a Y, and the top of the Y recognize certain proteins. So they designed this protein to specifically recognize HER2 on the outside of cells. And it turns out some breast cancer cells have a lot of the protein. That's what these little triangles are on the outside. But normal cells also express it. And so we think more of the drug is going to reach the tumor cell that expresses it. So because of that, they designed the trial, the protocol, and they said, okay, only patients who we detect this HER2 at a very high level can even receive the drug the very first time. So those were the only patients that were ever treated with trastuzumab. And it turned out that the trial was a success. The response rates were much higher than they were expecting. And so now trastuzumab is available to people who have HER2 positive disease. And it's been expanded to other diagnoses that are HER2 positive, colon cancer, for example. And so moving forward, it was studied in that patient population. Well, what happens if I ever give it to somebody who doesn't have HER2? We really don't know that. So how do I even measure HER2? So when they designed trastuzumab, they also designed this assay, this test. It's an IHC, immunohistochemistry. So they take a piece of your tumor and they put this protein on it, and then it lights up. So a pathologist looks under a microscope and says, yep, there's lots of cells, lots of tumor cells there, and most of them have very bright staining on the outside of their cells with this HER2. And that's how they are measuring it. And so there's this HER2 3+, there's a HER2 2+, and they make all these nice square boxes to define the different groups. How often do you think a patient falls right here or right here, right? So then they said, okay, well, it's not perfect, so I'm going to add this other test where they're going to look to see, do they have more than one gene copies of this gene? And it's called a FISH test. And so then they added this in. So some of the patients who are right here in the middle will be positive by FISH and some will be negative by FISH. And so what they decided is if you are 2+ and you have the FISH, or you're 3+, that's the line. You're positive and everyone else is negative. And that's how the test was done until pretty much just recently. I would say in the last 3 to 5 years. And now there's new trials, new protocols coming out where they said, you know what, I'm not going to just only give it to patients who this test identifies. I'm going to give it to everyone and ask afterward, are the people who have HER2 more likely to respond? And there's some newer drugs out, and it turns out even some patients who are down here at 0 are responding. So how does that happen, right? Is it the test? Is it the tumor? Is it anything else, right? And then I'm going to just go into a few more biomarkers. So then there's also molecular biomarkers. That was that protein. You do the tumor and you stain it and all of those things. There's also just looking for genetic changes. So I can do it from the blood. I can do it from the tumor. So you can measure it directly on the tumor tissue. Sometimes I can measure the tumor releasing this into the bloodstream, and I measure it in the blood. And then there's also a type of biomarker. We're talking a lot about what does the tumor look like right up front before I give any treatment. I can then also ask, what happens after I treat the tumor? Does that change inform anything that is going to come next? So what's better, blood or tissue? There's pros and cons to both. So the blood, it's very easy, it's non-invasive. I actually get a chance to sample everything, the entire tumor burden, right? Because many patients have one tumor and other tumors that go elsewhere. And I can't, or I shouldn't, or most of you probably wouldn't want me to go in and biopsy every single place I see on whatever the CT scan is to say, what does it look like? And then if you imagine a tumor, a ball of cells, and I put a tiny needle right in the middle, how do I know that that is an accurate representation of all the cells, even within that single tumor, right? So the blood has the opportunity to be more of holistic. The problem with it is not all tumors will release little bits of DNA into the bloodstream, so it may not be sensitive enough. And I can't actually look to see what I'm testing. Is that a cancer cell? Does it look funny? Any of those things. So there's no histology. So with tissue, we've been doing this for a long time. There's a lot of tissue around. Usually not enough to do all the tests now that we need for all of those different drugs. And it's also invasive. So those are the pros and the cons. All right, so here is the regulatory aspect of where the protocols come from. Coming from the beginning. So we have a drug. How do we figure out what dose and which patients to give it to, and that process? So the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration at the US, every other country has their own version of it, has a process. So the traditional the way this has gone for a long time is, somebody in the lab thinks up about a new medicine. And then they say, okay, well, let's investigate more. How many of these tumor samples have this target? And then, all right, there's a bunch of different targets. Which one should we target? And then we find a molecule that will hit that target. And we say, well, this one is probably, it binds a little bit better. The affinity is a little bit less. It doesn't hit something I don't want it to hit. So there's all of these types of research. And then there's this EIH is early in human. So there's a few things that we have to do before we can give a brand new molecule to a person. And we have to ask, what happens if I give it to a mouse, a rat, a pig? It depends on a variety of things. And so that's where these, what they are traditionally known as tox studies. And then there's all the in the clinic. So then there is phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, all of these different trials. So we find new insights into the disease, we pick a target, we figure out what the mechanism of action is of this drug, we figure out what dose, we figure out what kind of toxicity. Almost all of this is done in those mouse models or cells in a dish that we already kind of talked about are really not a great representation of what a person looks like. So then we give it to patients, and then we confirm, is what we thought correct? And then we give them higher and higher doses. Turned out what we've always done with chemotherapy is we just go up and up and up until it's the maximum tolerated. How high is enough? With the idea of more is better. But you know what? Sometimes less is more, right? And so that was not any part of this system. And then you get all of this data, and then you submit it to the FDA, and the FDA says, yeah, I agree with you, it looks promising. They approve it, and then they monitor after the fact. So after all these patients get it, then they keep monitoring. So this process takes anywhere from 10 to 15 years because it's sequential, right? That's a long time. Patient needs a new drug. Patient needs something. 15 years later is when the first time we might have something available. And then if you want a biomarker, maybe it's a target assay, maybe it's something else. There's all of these steps just for the assay. Does the assay measure what we think it is? Does it ever measure anything wrong? Is it reproducible? If I measure the same sample with the same test over and over and over again, do I get the same answer? And then, okay, great, I do. Does it matter when I give it to patients? I can't answer the does it matter question if only patients who I test positive get the drug. How do I ever know if it matters that way, right? So it's also incredibly expensive. So $100 billion US dollars is spent annually, each year, on anti-cancer drug therapies. Each new drug, on average, costs $100,000 per year. Some cost a lot more. And only 5 to 10% of these molecules that we think are promising and we go here, if they enter here, only 5 to 10% of them ever reach that far. We spend all that money. The reason we spend all that money is because 90 to 95% of the drugs that we spent money on to develop turned out not to be the case. And one thing I'm going to mention here that is not ever talked about or even considered in these numbers, how many drugs didn't treat a mouse with a tumor and so are sitting on the bench and aren't even in the mix of possible treatments because the models don't necessarily work well. So they made some changes in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years. The one that, there's lots of ways that the FDA is trying to move things faster. This one, this Project Optimus, just came out, I think it was 2022, maybe 2021. This, I actually think, is one of the most creative and innovation-driving things. Essentially, we talked about how we just dose up and up and up. The FDA says, no, let's not do that anymore. Instead of choosing the dose that is maximally tolerated, let's find the optimal biologic dose. What dose actually does what you want it to do by all the different measures? Gets to the tumor on time, gets metabolized correctly, all of those things. And that's driving a lot more innovation. So where this comes from and where I think the biggest innovation has come from, this is not a new idea of taking tumor growth and all of the different parts that go into a drug's activity and putting it into an equation, just math, right? But now it's being used, so instead of giving it to all these different mice and rats and everything else, we say, okay, of the drugs that were already given to mice and rats, and we know what happened in the clinic, how do we figure out what this new drug is going to do based on that old data? So we, up front, can start to figure out what is likely without ever giving it to a research animal, without spending lots of money and time. We can start to figure this out mathematically. And we can incorporate biomarkers, and the pharmacokinetics is just how the drug stays in the body. Does it stay high? Does it go up and down? Those types of things. So this is saving both development time and cost. And they did a survey recently of some of the companies who have been using this. And they think that it's saving, on average, 2 years and $30 to $70 million on development of one drug. The regulators are also approving of this. And so you can see oncology drug development is using this more than some of other drug development. And it is largely being used to choose the dose, but they also are doing things where they simulate a clinical trial before they ever give it to patients. They start to say, what do we think is going to happen? And this is just one example. So this was a model that was created. It was for a drug called brentuximab vedotin. And they created a model, and they said, what would a clinical trial look like? And that's this dark black line. And then they did the clinical trial, and this light gray line is what they saw. And this was one group's, and this was another group's analysis. It's pretty accurate. To be able to do that in a matter of the running of the math is, oh, yes?
Are these simulated trials computer generated? Is that what
Yes,
you're saying?
computer generated. So it's all mathematical, and they create this model totally independent of everything else based on data that we already have available.
Is this also considered artificial intelligence?
Yeah, so that idea of machine learning and artificial intelligence, it is similar to that. It's not, there's a huge spectrum of what that is, right? It's not the really scary parts. It's the how do we have a computer learn from the data that I give it, as opposed to it's not talking to me, it's not making choices on its behavior. So another model, this optimal biologic dose, is something called a clinical utility index. It's the sum of the probabilities of everything happening. And the equations and the, that is enormous, and I'm not going to bore you with those details. But essentially, the output looks something like this. And they say, okay, here's all the range of doses, whatever we want to say the utility is, response, toxicity, any of that. And we just say, okay, well, where is the best place to go? Because you know what? More is not always more. Sometimes less is more. And that's what this elbow of the curve suggests. This has been used. So venetoclax was a small molecule drug. It was approved for a disease called chronic lymphocytic leukemia. And they, per that maximum tolerated dose, they chose 400 milligrams as the dose. They then did it and they said, I want to try it in multiple myeloma. And instead of just using that same dose that was kind of arbitrarily chosen and tested, they now did this, and it turns out venetoclax, at least in multiple myeloma, needs a different dose. And they were able to do this before they even started the trial. The trial was originated at the better dose choice. So this is my last slide. So just in the last, I think 6 months, oh, it looks like 2 years now. A lot of time has gone by. This was a quote, and there is a group of pharmacologists, Those are the people who are really thinking about all of these features of the drug. And the quote was, the best clinical utility of the drug for a patient should be informed by the patient's preference. How do we do that? I just showed you all the different ways that people are taking data from all these different things. None of them did they turn and ask patients, what do you want? What's important to you? Because ultimately, if what's important to you is the maximum tumor shrinkage, sure, the highest dose, who cares about toxicity, might be the right choice for you. If your choice is, I want to be able to continue to walk my dog for 2 miles a day, and I can't handle toxicity that makes me have neuropathy or really bad fatigue, that high dose might not be what your preference is. How do I take all of that into account when I'm choosing the drug, the dose, all of that for individual patients? And this is where I think we need to start to move to. And I can sit, in a computer and in a lab and try and figure out, but I think it would be more informed if I heard from you all. What would be most important?
I think the most important thing that I learned, my husband has multiple myeloma, and it's the cost of these drugs. The drugs that he takes started out at $25,000 a year for us, our actual cost. And now, because they've decided there was lawsuits on the drug, he gets it free, or he gets a $12,000, which is its cost. So the main thing is, what can you do to improve the cost of a drug? Because you have to include that, because a lot of people can't afford to pay $24,000 a year on one drug. And the new drugs that you're really talking about, a lot of them can be very, very high prices. And that's why you can't get help because the new drugs and they're working on it, control that or whatever. So one of the main things you have to consider in a patient's preference is, how are we going to pay for that? I mean, it's going to kill you you become broke, you can't pay for your bill anymore. And then they'll have government funding and stuff. But then you're broke, you haven't got a place to live or a car or whatever.
Right.
You have to sell everything to pay for cancer, and it gives you a few more years. It's not going to give you a lifetime.
Right.
But what is it worth?
Yeah.
Because right now he's infusing, and there's a drug that may work for him, but he couldn't take Velcade, so that drug's out. And the new drug, if it has the same reaction, and in the meantime, to test it on him is going to cost $12,000 a month. Okay, so where does that come in? Do you really want to test it, or do you want to continue and that's something you have to consider, because there's, the finances is the thing that gets you. When you're worried about that, you're not recovering properly.
That's
Yeah, and they're actually testing on you to see what's going to happen, right? They are testing. And when you're in the test, you do get paid minimum, but you don't have to pay for your drugs. But once it's gone to the market, then it's all bar. We're going to charge you a fortune to buy our drug.
Yep.
And even for 1 month, it's going to cost you $12,000. And if you only take it once and you can't walk with it, which has been Velcade, and then you're out that money right off the bat. And then you got to try something else. So that's something to consider before you even ask the patient. You got to consider what they can financially afford and if they can get funding or not. And that's real important.
This is a question we have from people that are watching online. Okay, so if you're able to answer that, and then ask people where you need to cut off at the quarter till mark, and then ask you afterwards. So, okay.
Places that will help. And multiple myeloma is what I have. And the Leukemia Lymphoma Society is great at giving grants. And they are paid for all my medicine.
He has a grant for the one drug, but the new drug is coming. And if he wants to get off the needle, he's going to have to take the new drug.
It's hard, but there's a lot online that you can do the research. There's all kinds of help.
Oh, yeah, there's all kinds of help.
But you just have to go through the process. It could take you months to get it grant.
And Northwest has helped us, with funding and stuff.
Right.
But there's only, if you make a certain amount of money, there's
Then
only,
they won't.
there's only a certain amount that you can do.
Yeah.
And
This is an incredibly important topic, but I do want to make sure I can answer a few other questions. And there's one here in the front.
So you were saying, what do the patients want? Lower toxicity, lower amount of drug for lower toxicity. Do we give up the tumor shrinking to nothing with the lower dose, or does it just mean longer time on treatment? Like, what does that mean for someone? For my situation, the neuropathy was horrible. Mm-hmm. And if someone could say, you could take it at a lower dose and be more functional and still will get your tumor knocked out. Like, is that a thing, or is it you give up one for the other?
A lot of times the answer with that question is, I don't know.
Fair enough.
And it is something that I think we could know. We could at least start to get an estimate by using some of these mathematical models.
Yes,
and that is exactly where I think the innovation with the changes from the FDA is that those changes are driving some of this innovation, and they're allowing this, and it is saving money and time. It's going to take a really long time for that cost savings to affect the cost of drugs. It's going to take less amount of time to bring our knowledge into an individual patient. And this is actually the closest thing I've seen to really be able to incorporate all of these features. But we still need to know from you. So for you, I need to be able to plug that in. I need to have a score in the office where I can say, answer that question. What is the likelihood if I took a lower dose that I would have less neuropathy? And what is the likelihood that I would have less tumor shrinkage? I wouldn't be able to definitively tell you, but I'd give you an estimate. Yeah.
So is that sort of treatment available? I mean, could a person come in and say, I can't tolerate letrozole? That's the best treatment for me, but I can't tolerate it. Mm-hmm. So do you have the ability right now for somebody to come in and say, can I take a lesser dose? Is there anything to mitigate some of the side effects, like the neuropathies, the fatigue, everything? Would a lesser dose do that?
Yeah.
What can be done right now to fix that situation?
Yeah, and I would say there is not an absolute answer that you walk into any oncologist office and they can offer it. It's coming. I don't know how long. Yeah.
Just went through radiation, and I interviewed 3 radiation oncologists before I found one that would do a lower dose on me.
Yep.
Because I'm sensitive and a higher dose.
Yeah, and I think that's what you have in your power right now is get second, third, fourth opinions. I have many patients who have 3 oncologists, not for their choice, but they continue to what I call crowdsource. I mean, it's a lot, it's complex, and there's a lot of options. And having one doctor say, this is what I think is your best option, I don't know that anyone knows that. I don't even think you as a patient know what your best option is. And so I think crowdsourcing, if that is what makes you feel most comfortable, then and all of those are important points. And if you are thinking, that's where I put in there the sequence, right? Now that we have immunotherapy, if I extend 12, 15 different chemotherapy where I knock down the immune system and then I give an immunotherapy, is that going to work as well as if I started with the immunotherapy and you had a normal immune system? A lot of times we don't know that answer. But this is a start to be able to figure out what is likely. Yes?
How, as a patient, would you suggest to avoid going down the rabbit hole of Facebook or sources that say this is good, this is bad, or this didn't work for me, or this has gotten me on the floor, or then you go back and you question the doctor. It's very, very time-consuming to be an advocate for your own health and not being a physician or know the terminology.
Yeah.
Where do you feel comfortable sending a person to be at least strong in their own protocol?
Yeah. So there's a variety of places. Again, this is one of those up and coming. One place that I recommend patients with multiple myeloma go to is, I'm going to forget the name of the website right now, All for Cure. And All for Cure is a website. You release your medical information, you incorporate it in. It is a group of physicians and bioinformaticists who analyze all of it in a private manner. You end up getting a code number. And not only do they look at what happens to you, but as all the patients in All for Cure, and they are mapping, if they get this treatment, then this treatment, this is what happened. And they start to do the same kind of modeling. On that platform, you also have, not a blog, but like Facebook, where you can type in questions, and those questions go 15, 20 different physicians. And a lot of times patients become experts, right? Caregivers become, I mean, we should be able to give a nursing degree for many of the caregivers, right? I mean, you become as educated, if not more so, about your experience. And so you get to ask different patients and physicians there about it. So those types of things are coming. But yeah, Facebook can be a scary place. So can Google.
Speaking of, I've got a question from a viewer who is watching online. Is there efficacy around high dose for vitamin C?
Yeah, so high dose vitamin C is one of the things that a lot of people try. The problem is it is not something that has been studied at all with these types of protocols. So I don't have any data. I don't necessarily even have after the fact evidence where I can start to incorporate it. So that one I know very little about because it's not as regulated and it hasn't gone through this feature.
One more question. To try it?
Sorry, one.
Would that be risky to try it for overdose vitamin C?
Risky is comes down to your goals and values, right? So I can't define that as risky. I would say there's a greater unknown. But there's also unknowns with all of these drugs too. Sometimes there's data behind it. Just like, you know, average person on the trial weighed 200 pounds and you weigh 75 or you weigh 375, why the same dose? We have started to do different variations of weight-based, but weight doesn't even totally take that into account. So there's lots of things to tweak yet.
I have a question.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, really, two small questions.
Yeah.
I'm told that they're not calling it cancer. It's a protein that's attacking my kidneys. And they said that what makes it so absolutely rare is it has no markers. And are there very many conditions like that have no markers? They are treating me with rituximab and Velcade, and talking about the cost, my rituximab was $20,000 a month. Medicare paid $17,000 of it, but I think if the country goes to socialized medicine, we'll never see any of this ever again, because they're not going to be spending that kind of money on investigation, clinical trials. But my other question is, well, mainly I want to know if there's very many people that have a no marker type situation.
It's not uncommon. Is it common? No. But there's definitely patients who have no marker or a tumor that expresses HER2, but I can't find the HER2, right? There's so many reasons why you don't necessarily have the marker. And so I think that's where it's all part of the learning and trying to take all that information and your goals into account. I know I'm actually quite over time and I don't want to run into your lunch, but I will stay for another 15 minutes or so, and I'm happy to answer questions offline.
I think this was amazing.
Oh.
So much research. So you have about an hour and 15 minutes. The next presenter will be speaking promptly at 1:15, so we can end our conference at 2 and have our prizes. So enjoy your lunch.
The lunchroom's right there behind you, and come back and enjoy lunch.
Thank you. Thank you. Sit down.
Okay. Yep.
Can people hear me?
Here, if you want to stay on here. No, let's just turn that on.
Okay, does that not work?
Mm-hmm. No, we need both.
We need both?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. No worries, no worries. Doesn't technology, isn't it supposed to make our life easier? I think that's what people tell me. I'm gonna step over here. Okay, so everyone can hear me, right? Okay, fantastic. Okay, so I'm Michelle Massey. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you. I'm happy to support the Pierce County Survivorship Conference, and it's a joy to hang out with you. So I'm glad that we can hang out today. So my style of presenting is I'll show you research. I'll show you what a lot of people who work really hard doing studies and they write fancy books, as they should, and I will tell you what they say. But honestly, you are all experts in your own care, in your own self. So really, you are the experts. I'm just telling you what other people who have a lot of experience and knowledge are saying, and then I've got some stories too, and I'll share with you my experience for the last 23 years of supporting survivors and the fear of recurrence. I will stop and ask for some questions along the way, so feel free, and then we can go for questions at the end as well. All right, so again, I'm Michelle. Thank you for having me here. We will talk about what is recurrence and what is specifically the fear of cancer recurrence, because that's actually a thing. It's actually a unique aspect of living with cancer. Uncertainty is so much part of it, so we will discuss that. And we can't talk about any of this without talking about anxiety, depression, PTSD symptoms. That's a huge part of the fear of recurrence. How to cope with fear, follow-up care, and I have a resource page for you all, although you probably know a lot of those resources. Okay, so the National Institute of Health, what they say recurrence is fear or worry or concern relating to the possibility that cancer will come back or cancer has progressed. And I like that. I like that. Do you agree with that definition? That's what they say. Everyone's cool with that? Okay. Yes. So the interesting, unique things about fear of cancer recurrence is that so many patients report it as an unmet need. So a lot of patients I've worked with say they had a lot of support while they were in cancer treatment, And then as soon as they finished cancer treatment, they just felt like they didn't have the support they once did, and they didn't have adequate support. So it definitely has been identified as an unmet need. And that these fears and concerns are often overlooked by the medical team. Now, I work with all doctors and all hospitals, and I love everyone. So I'm not putting anyone down, but I do think it's important to call it for what it is. And so many of my patients have described this fear as something that's kind of shimmied under the rug or not taken seriously, or that, oh, you're just overreacting. And then they say, go see Michelle. I'm like, cool. I mean, I'm happy to work. I'm happy to work with you, but you know, it's important to not be overlooked by your medical team too. So one unique thing is that patients who have finished cancer treatment and are moving on with their life, there, as you all know, there is a high risk that cancer might come back, right? Does anybody agree with that? Are they in a situation that there is? And that's not an opinion, that's been shown, by these fancy books that people write, right? So that has been proven. So there is truth to the fear. So if anyone kind of makes you feel like you're just overreacting, or don't take it so seriously, it's like, there's actually books written about this, that my cancer could come back. So that's it's a real fear. It's something that could happen. So you're not catastrophizing. If anyone tells you you're catastrophizing, say, Michelle said I'm not catastrophizing. So no, you're not. No, there is truth to this fear. Or fear of a different cancer. I mean, there's recurrence, but there's also a second diagnosis too. So, and that does happen. And often, and again, this is shown, this is not my opinion, this is shown, when there is a recurrence of cancer, it's often diagnosed as terminal. So, not all the time, no, but there is a significant amount of diagnosis as a terminal diagnosis. So there is truth to your fear. There is truth to your concerns. And if there's anything that you leave this presentation with, it's understanding that you're not losing your mind. It's actually a real concern. And it's something that I don't feel is really talked about all that much. And I'm glad that we're talking about it today. So, fear of a terminal diagnosis, fear of a different cancer coming back, being overlooked by your medical team and having it be an unmet need for so many patients. So what, right? What happens psychologically? What happens is that there is impaired quality of life and impaired psychological adjustment that happens. You might have elevated emotional distress, and that can manifest in a range of physical symptoms. Headaches, nausea, pain, those all can manifest, the mind-body connection when we have that level of, psychological adjustment or difficulty in coping with our life. So you might notice physical symptoms and emotional distress. That is unique, and this is all unique to recurrence and fear of recurrence. So I call this the big ask. The big ask is that when you go through cancer treatment and maybe there's no evidence NED, right? No evidence of disease. But then often we're living with uncertainty. And so it's a big ask to ask anyone to live with uncertainty for the rest of your life. It's never easy, and living with uncertainty, it's a completely normal, functional experience, right? Because hopefully no one's telling you, well, don't live with uncertainty. Like, excuse me. So living with uncertainty is a big ask, and I do recognize that, and I want to recognize that for all of you, and hopefully you feel heard and cared about and valued, because I don't know how you could not live with uncertainty. Worry is most intense during the first year after treatment. So do keep that in mind. Time passing should help a little. It's not magic or anything, but a lot of the people I work with, the worry is most intense that first year post-treatment. It's very important to recognize and honor your emotions. So that's part of what I'm doing today. Is part of it is research, but part of it is I really want to help you recognize your own emotions and have those emotions be valued and honored. So do not ignore your fears. And it often depends on your medical team of how the relationship is, and do you trust them, and are they receptive to your concerns of, are you able to recognize your fears, or are you kind of shoved under the rug, so to speak? That happens. So we're going to take a minute. We're going to take a minute to talk about anxiety and depression and PTSD on the next slide. So there's actually a thing. There's actually a thing. If you research sadness and cancer patients, there's actually a sadness scale for people living with cancer. And I don't know if anyone knew that, but it's actually a thing. And the sadness that cancer patients experience is a level of fear or unrest that goes beyond just being nervous. It's a level of fear that you will not be able to handle whatever comes. This fear of, I think there's no way I can handle that. I don't know. Has anyone felt that? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, you guys know what I'm talking about. All right. So that's unique, right? That's unique to, or that is something that is assessed when we're talking about anxiety, depression for people experiencing cancer. So one of the reasons for this is uncertainty and adjustment to situations. If your personality is already starting out where you have difficulty adjusting to new situations, cancer isn't going to help that. So if you're already starting out with maybe high anxiety over uncertainty, fear of recurrence is going to, you might experience that more often. Pain level. Nothing will increase anxiety and fear more than pain, right? So do keep in mind, if you are experiencing pain, you have a right to ask your medical team to help you with that. And you have that right. I empower you to seek help for pain and not just like tough it out. Don't tough it out. No one likes a show off, right? No one likes a show off, so you don't need to tough it out. Ask for help. Absolutely, because pain level, it's a different lens in which we look through when you're in pain. Relationship concerns. Again, fear of recurrence, definitely, it could impact your marriage, it could impact dating. If you meet someone and they're like, how are you? I'm like, well, I'm really worried that cancer's gonna come back, and that might not be the answer they were looking for. So, it could be, but I don't know. You don't really put that on your profile on Match, really. You can, no shame, own who you are. But you can see that the fear is, it's reasonable. That's a real fear. That's not making things up. That's a real concern. Worry and loss about independence and constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Waiting, I'm okay today, but don't know about tomorrow or in August, thinking about whether you can make that vacation, things like that. So that is all documented in this scale that is shown to have a significant amount of sadness, anxiety, and depression specifically for cancer patients. So let's talk about diagnosable depression, because there's sadness and then there's depression. Okay, so on the next slide I have a picture of it. When you talk to your oncologist or primary care physician, they will probably have you fill out a PHQ-9. Does anyone know that? Have you ever filled that out? Okay, I'll show you an example of it in a minute. So we like the PHQ-9 because it allows people who are not mental health professionals to have some kind of measurement. Or we use it, I use it as a therapist too. We can use it as well, but it is a scale and it will ask you these kind of questions. So are you feeling sad and you don't know why? Sleeping too much or too little? You're either not hungry at all or you're eating too much. Loss of energy, loss of interest in daily activities, trouble concentrating or remembering, trouble making decisions. I'm going to add difficulty or not an interest in doing kind of what you normally like to do, like hang out with your family or friends or your dog or whatever it is. Feeling worthless, hopeless, feeling like there's no hope for the situation, that there can't possibly be any way that you're going to be able to deal with this kind of fear. And feeling like you might hurt yourself or someone else, having suicidal thoughts. If you are having thoughts of hurting yourself, any kind of suicidal thoughts, please get help immediately. Crisis line, emergency department, your providers. But it gets tricky. I will tell you why it gets tricky. But first I want to show you. So there's the PHQ-9 for those who don't know, and then you just fill out your answers to all these questions, kind of what we just went over, and then will be a score at the bottom there, and then that will identify you as mild, medium, or severely depressed. But it's not magic, so while it's a helpful tool, that's not the end-all in a diagnosis, so you've got to really be clear with your providers about what you're feeling. Okay, the reason this gets tricky, one of the reasons this gets tricky, is post-traumatic stress disorder. And PTSD-C is chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, which is something that I have been seeing in the last maybe 5 years. I've done this 23 years. So the one thing is that there's been a lot of medications, there's been a lot of movement with science, and people are living longer. So in the past, people might have passed away. Now people are living longer, so they're living with fear, living with uncertainty for years. It could be 5, 10, 20 years. So what has happened now is a chronic post-traumatic stress disorder is coming up. So the main things with PTSD is if you have difficulty sleeping, which is same as depression, right? Difficulty making decisions, which is the same as depression. Questioning your ability to make decisions, depression as well. Increased heart rate, difficulty breathing or panic. If you've ever had that kind of like a feeling of, I don't know, I know I look ridiculous, I'm okay with that. I've got 2 children that tell me I look ridiculous all the time, so I know. But that feeling of panic, and I really want to be clear on that, like feeling, because that most likely is a PTSD reaction. Increased fear, that crippling fear. Do you guys know that crippling fear? Does anyone want to share any example of what crippling fear is?
When you go to the store and you're shopping and you just get overwhelmed, you just leave your basket and run out of the store.
Yeah, because you feel in that moment.
You can't do anything right there. You just have
Yeah.
to get out of the situation.
Yeah, you have to get out. Yeah. Any other thoughts on what crippling fear is?
Do you want the microphone? So scared.
Go, dear, if you want that.
I was so depressed and scared that I was afraid to go to school, and I'm a teacher.
Uh-oh, that could go wrong.
My sister had to go with me because I didn't think I could face the day without a support person.
Yeah.
But then I stopped taking my medicine, the letrozole, and then my depression went away, and I was like, oh, I can handle anything now. But I just wanted to stay in bed. I was afraid to go to Hawaii. I was afraid to go to school.
Yes.
I just wanted to stay home.
Yes, that is most likely, I can't diagnose you in this setting, but that most likely is a PTSD reaction. That crippling fear that you can't either go into school, like go somewhere, or you have to get out. You have to get out right now. And it's like tunnel vision, right? Like you don't see anything else. You're doing the best you can to be upright. And that is what you get, right? That's the best you can do. So that crippling fear, you want to watch out for that. Is there?
Or even just crawling out of bed.
Right? Sometimes that's the best we can do. Yeah.
Sometimes waking up with symptoms and having a crippling fear, while you go through that time frame to figure out what is this new symptom.
Yes.
Is it the sarcoma again? Is it the breast cancer again? Something's happening in my body. One that wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a crippling fear.
Absolutely. Right, because something's changing, or something did change. Mm-hmm. Now things don't go away. Or your brain might think, well, the last time my body changed, I got a cancer diagnosis. So we're not playing that anymore. But the body does what it wants, so what do you do? But that produces that crippling fear. It's hard to explain it if you've never felt it. I would agree. I think it's hard to explain, but it's definitely a symptom of PTSD. Flashbacks, you might have a flashback of a medical treatment, or it could be lots of things. How you felt when you walked into the oncologist's office, you could flash back to that moment when you were told you had cancer, and that is also a symptom of PTSD. Physical reaction to smell or taste, like, the taste of, metallic taste of chemo, or like the alcohol wipes they use before like a port insert or a blood test, something like that. Anything that you associate with your treatment. Increased anxiety or panic when entering the place of treatment. And I'm not putting any place down. It's not their fault. It's just the way that it is, unless it is. But I don't know about that. But I'm not putting any facility down in particular. But it does happen, when you go back into the place of treatment, you could get a kind of a flush of memories, or a feeling of uncertainty, or feeling like you're not grounded in a way, like feeling almost like you could fall down. It's an interesting way. And that's all PTSD related. Going back for routine medical exams, scans, needles, any of it could bring up. It's a result of medical trauma. Yes?
Things, not even that, just standing in the bathroom and you can't get the medication out of the pressed little packet.
Right.
Or it falls on the floor, and all of a sudden you're stressed out about something so stupid that you're crying, and you're yelling at your husband because you can't open a piece of foil.
And you probably could open that piece of foil before cancer.
Oh, Lord, yes.
Yeah. So yes, that definitely can be PTSD. So there's a few reasons why it's tricky with PTSD or medical trauma and fear of recurrence. Is one thing is a lot of these and a lot of the depression symptoms are also side effects of medication. So how do you know if it's depression or if it's medication? Or does it matter? I don't know. It depends. It depends on the situation. The other thing that is tricky about it is all providers love that PHQ-9. They are like, thank goodness I've got that, Michelle, because I don't know. It's not their specialty. They're like an oncologist. They're not mental health providers. It's okay. And what happens is that you might have depression. You might score a certain level of depression, but if you're not talking to a mental health provider, they might not ask you about PTSD. So while you might have depression, PTSD is going undiagnosed. Now there's only 2 medications that treat PTSD and depression that are regulated by the FDA. So They are Paxil and Zoloft. So if you're prescribed one of those meds, fantastic. That'll take care of it, or at least help if you want medication. If you're prescribed only an antidepressant that does not treat PTSD because the provider doesn't know to screen you for PTSD, then you're not touching the PTSD symptoms at all, and then you're going undiagnosed. And so providers will call me and they're like, Michelle, this person, I've been working with them for 2 years and they're having all these symptoms. I'm like, why didn't you call me like a year ago? Like the symptoms have got so bad. But to their credit, they didn't know. So that's why it's tricky. That's why fear of recurrence is so important, that you are honored and valued for what you're experiencing, and that you are speaking to your providers about it. And if they're just pushing it under the rug, then find a different provider, if you want. Not giving medical advice. Or just email me and I'll help you. Okay, how to cope with fear of cancer recurrence. Okay, I've been talking a lot about recognizing and honoring your emotions. That's super, super important. Very, very important. Do not ignore your fears. I also understand, and I want to honor this, it is also a big ask because you might be tired, you might be working, you might be trying to just get up in the morning and you'd be like, Michelle, I don't want to honor my emotions. I'm tired. I know, yeah. So I do recognize that it's a big ask. I do. Oh, we have a question. Go ahead.
Honoring my emotions when I have to honor them for like a day or two, I can do it.
Yeah.
But if it's weeks and I have appointments 3 and 4 of them a day, simple, and I just want my life back.
Absolutely.
I do not honor that. It just makes me mad.
It just makes you angry, for sure. And why shouldn't you be angry? Yeah.
Only be so kind to yourself, and then pretty soon you feel like it's just an excuse again to not do what I need to do. I want to.
Right.
I'm a doer, and I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Looking for a reason to get out of it. So then I don't honor as much. I struggle to honor.
You struggle the honor. Struggle the honor. That's a real thing. Absolutely. Struggle to honor. It is, and that's another big ask. I guess cancer has a lot of big asks, right? Like, there's more than one. Yes, because you get tired of honoring your emotions, and definitely do not ignore your fears. I would say if you can honor them enough to talk to your provider if you want assistance. If you don't want assistance, then don't. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. But if you can take that anger and say, I need help, and I need you to help me. Like, if you can kind of empower yourself, and hopefully it might be kind of a pain in the rear in the beginning, but maybe once you have the medications or once you have a program set, it would be less of a pain, I would hope. But I feel you, I do. I respect honoring our emotions. You just get tired of it. So, in my experience, the things that I have found most helpful to handle honoring your emotions or fear of recurrence, fear of cancer, is joining a support group. And I don't know, the support groups I lead are fun. So if you think like support groups aren't fun, I don't want to like listen to all this. Be like, no, like we talk about all kinds of things, and cancer is just one thing. Cancer is just one part of you. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the whole part of who you are. But just talking to other people who understand it, that right there, that connection to people makes you feel, it makes you feel like maybe you're not losing your mind, right? It makes you feel like, oh my gosh, they get it, thank you. And that will lower anxiety and depression and PTSD symptoms and cortisol levels, right? Like if you're in PTSD, your cortisol levels are high and anxiety goes through the roof. But if you are able to talk to other people experiencing something similar, it definitely will lower those symptoms. And even if you don't say much, you don't have to say much. So there's a lot of virtual groups too, so you don't even have to get out of your jammies. So. Cancer counselor, it's always, I think, a good thing to have somebody to talk to who isn't a relative or anything, so you might not be putting everything on your spouse or your kids or friends or whoever. So just having someone to talk to about it, and who is a professional, is helpful to just get it out, just to release. Due diligence. I talk about due diligence with healthcare and cancer because it's also, we can also use the language of do what you have control over. Because you have control over some things, not everything, but some things. And the more you have control over what you can, most likely there will be less fear and less anxiety and less depressive symptoms. So make healthy choices or avoid unhealthy choices, wherever you stand on that, with behavior, with nutrition, with everything in life. Be well informed on your diagnosis, your team, and educate yourself on your treatments. Make sure that you are understanding all that your provider is doing and ask questions. Reduce or manage stress by hobbies or activities that you enjoy. Go for walks if you like walking. I know we're in the Pacific Northwest, but there's some people who actually don't like hiking. How many people have had some provider tell them to go hiking? A lot of them, yeah. Okay, you can do it, but there's a lot of us who don't like hiking. No, thank you, there's bugs. No. So if you want to go hiking, do it. If that just adds to your stress, please don't. No. No. So I put walk. Walking is good though. Walking's different. I have a story for a second. So I'm a little bougie and my daughters are a little bougie too, and I can't tell them we're going hiking because they won't go. So I say, we're just walking, it's just a walk in the forest on a dirt trail. And we might see some, I don't know, squirrels or something. And they might do it with me then. But if I say it's a hike, they're like, nope, I'm out, Mom. So I think that when we're talking about coping skills, you have to do what really works for you, not necessarily what society thinks you should do, so to speak. So you do what feeds your soul, feeds your spirit. Exercise in some way. So I talked about those cortisol levels for a minute. Exercise will reduce cortisol levels. Again, not a doctor, but it's something I see a lot with medical treatments and the cancer patients I work with. If you're in PTSD, your cortisol levels are high because it's fight or flight. That's fight or flight, and that's the hormone that goes with it. So exercise has been proven to lower cortisol levels, and that's something that you'll want to watch out for. Mindset. Again, that's another big ask. It's a really big ask. How you're looking at your universe, how you're looking at your world. And then there's toxic positivity sprinkled on top of that donut, right? So, I mean, there's mindset, but also when I say honor your experience, be like, this is how I feel. Like, I understand what so-and-so is saying, but I don't agree, or it just stinks, it just does. And wouldn't it be nice if friends or family could just sit with you, even if you're not happy, even if you're just, And really, I think that's gold. If you can find someone who wants to be with you when you're just not feeling good, like not feeling great, that if you have that in your life, keep that person or people. That's who you want. So that, I would say, is due diligence. That's our accountability as patients. Like, try to do as best as you can with all these in order to manage the anxiety, PTSD, depression that comes with fear of recurrence. Because it really is, with recurrence, it really is a specific condition. Okay. The other thing that I have found really helpful for the patients that I work with is having a really solid or easily understood follow-up care plan or survivorship care plan. And a lot of oncologists do this. You might talk to the oncologist, you might talk to the nurse, and they're really great. Social workers at your hospital can also help you with this. I used to do this at UW for years. So you have employees who can help you. So what a survivorship care plan will look like is something like this, and this is what we used to do at UW. You will have regular physical exams with the oncologist or the follow-up care oncologist. It could be a different one. It depends what survivorship clinic you're at. You will have tests to keep track of your recovery process. You will have physical and mental health services available to you. And they will probably have services, mental health services at the clinic, but if not, they refer out. Medication management is going to be huge. That's a huge part of survivorship. And if you have any questions about your medication, or if you're like, hey, this lady kept talking about side effects of medication being the same as depression, anxiety, and PTSD, I want to talk to you about that, please do. Make sure you're on the correct medications. Potential long-term effects. And do keep in mind they're potential. They're not guaranteed. The fancy books and research doesn't say guaranteed long-term effects. That's not what they say. It does say potential. And suggestions for daily living and nutrition, and they would go all over that with you. Have there been success stories with survivorship plans? Have you guys found that at all? Doing a survivorship plan? I see some nods. Okay. It's definitely a resource I encourage you to utilize. If your clinic or your healthcare system doesn't offer it, look to go to a different one. There are good people who do these survivorship care plans, and that can really help with fear of recurrence. And just having a plan does, right? Because then you're like, okay, someone is watching me. Because you went from someone watching you every freaking day to nothing, right? Or once every 6 months, you might have a scan. So having the knowledge, having something that you can count on with the survivorship plan will reduce anxiety as well.
I know what I did regarding, because a lot of the medical care people, primary care doctors and all, seem to be moving out of the system. So I said to my oncologist, don't you be going away.
You tell them, sister, you tell them. That's right. You just give them what for. Oh, yeah. Because you want to know, right? You want to know. Yeah. You have to do that. Be like, or just tell me. Give me like a year warning. Yeah. It's like breaking up with someone, right? Like, just tell me what your plans are. And you do you, but good for you. You say, don't you leave. No. Mm-mm. Feel free to ask your care team anything, honestly. And that's why they are there. That's why they're here to help you. And they're good people who are doing good work. So feel free to ask anything. But these are kind of the main questions we used to go, that I've spent a lot of time doing these survivorship care plans with oncologists, and this is the main questions. So what follow-up care plan should I follow to watch for a recurrence? And then what specifically is your plan? I want to know every little detail of that. What is the likelihood of my kind of cancer returning? Likelihood, not guaranteed, just likelihood. Do keep in mind that you're looking at statistics. Statistics might not be current. They might, but if you're looking at one 20 years ago, just keep in mind there's been so many changes now with medications that I don't know if the research you're looking at is still valid. What symptoms of cancer recurrence should I watch out for? Having that knowledge will give you the power to kind of manage your own anxiety. So it's not necessarily going to be like any time your ankle hurts or something, or your left toe or something. That, unless they say that specifically, you probably don't need to worry about it. So do your due diligence, right? Educate yourself on what symptoms of cancer recurrence should you watch out for. And which doctor should you talk to if you suspect a cancer recurrence? At the system, at the survivorship care clinic, who can you talk to about anxiety or worry that you experience? Or do you need to be referred out to a provider? And any support groups or counseling services that might help. They've got a list. These are not hard questions for them. They've got lists. They can just hand you the list, or they can just tell you. So please advocate for yourself. Go in with these questions, and hopefully that will reduce fear of recurrence. And remember, you're paying for that appointment, right? So, or your insurances, right? So you deserve to have answers to these questions. Okay, just some resources that I use often. There's a lot of support groups, Cancer Lifeline, Cancer Pathways. Your local hospital most likely has them. Most support groups, I believe, are still virtual, but the nice thing about that, you can just wear your jammies, you can be with your cat, it's very relaxed. I don't know if in-person, what do you guys think? Do you want in-person groups? Yes. You do? Okay, good to know, good to know. I can see what I can do about that. Yeah. But virtual is nice to a point. Make sure you're doing your research from reputable sites. My favorite one is the ASCO site. It's the Association of Clinical Oncology, and it's cancer.net, and that's where I get most of my research. Or National Institute of Health. They're pretty good. They seem to know what's up, so I like them. And they write lots of the fancy books and papers are written by these people, and they are wise and they know what's up. American Cancer Society, always good, cancer.org. Survivorship specifically, I mean, there's so many that I just put Virginia Mason, Hutch, and Swedish, but I know Multicare has it, and Franciscan, and Peace Help up north. The main thing is to get yourself hooked into survivorship resources. That is just as important as treatment, and that's often not said. So I'll say it. So that's really important to kind of empower yourself to get the help that you need. You don't have to just tough it out. I don't want anyone toughing it out. Oh yeah, they're. Well, okay, there we go. You don't have Harmony Hill up there. I do not. Harmony Hill is wonderful. Yep, I do love Harmony Hill. Yes. Are there what other resources have worked for you all? Yeah, good.
Facebook group where I'm helping others going through the process.
Has that worked out? I'm on the fence with Facebook groups.
We sew mastectomy pillows and send them to this girl that they stuff them and send blessing boxes to people. And helping other people seems to help me.
Yes, helping other people helps you. That's something to keep in mind. Facebook groups, if you find a good one, like the one you're mentioning, that seems like a really helpful group, but if it's a toxic group, unfollow it immediately. Yeah.
I have neuroendocrine cancer, and when I first got diagnosed 11 years ago, there was a lot of it, and as you said, it ended up being very toxic, because for me, it's like, okay, now where do I go? Rather than getting everybody, I've got this, and woe is me, and I mean, that's where it happened. We are all there. But there is one group that I'm in that was started by a particular specialist, neuroendocrine tumor specialist, and it's a very different kind of group. And so it's about finding the groups that work, because they don't allow the constant, the biology, or the biography stuff.
Yeah.
They're just, where are we here? This is what symptom I'm So
Right.
it's more of a resource rather than, than a group that you all tell each other.
It's more resource-based, less emotional support.
Yeah.
And both are good.
It's both.
Yeah. Both are good. Both are good. So wherever you can find support, I think is good. Oh, yes.
You talk about trauma and things like that with this. My therapist, I've been doing therapy probably after I almost finished radiation, because that was the point that was the hardest for me, because I was seeing so many doctors and then it went to nothing. And so that was the part I was struggling with. But my therapist is a trauma therapist. So that's a good one. And I did go to Harmony Hills, and it was wonderful. And I actually met a group of people that are gathering outside of Harmony Hills.
Oh, nice.
And then if you're in Kitsap County, Kathleen's Sun Fund is a good one to help. They give you mileage and tolls and things like that if you're in the area. Because, I mean, a lot of doctor's appointments, those things add up. So
For sure.
Resources. And my oncologist, we did talk about with everything medication-wise, because mine's estrogen-based cancer, they've blocked a lot of hormones, and so my hormones have been going up and down. And so with that, she did say a phrase that's kind of stuck with me: I can't dig my heels in and get past it. This is something that they're manipulating chemistry in your body, and so therefore we need to work with that chemistry. So,
yes, work with the chemistry. I like that. I like that. Thank you. And it was the Catherine Sun Fund?
Kathleen Sun.
Oh, Kathleen Sun Fund.
Where's your survivor program?
I work with all of them. So I work at Cancer Pathways, and I have a private therapy practice. So I spent years at UW, so I'm probably most connected with them, but I work with Swedish pretty closely too. So, but I'm happy to help anyone was there. Yes?
So when we're talking about things that work for us, one of the best things that worked for me was coming to one of these.
Yes! Yes.
And having my oncologist, Dr. Senegal, do a class in which he said that he felt like all of his patients, because that's all he works with is cancer, that he felt all of his patients were or had suffered from some level of PTSD. And until I was given permission, I was fighting.
Yes.
When I was given permission that this is not, I'm not weird, and I'm not crazy.
Right?
Not any crazier than I was before.
For real, yeah.
Then I didn't have all the fears that had gone with, I'm crazy. Everybody else thinks I'm crazy.
Yep.
If you're not going for treatment anymore, then you're perfectly fine.
Yes, that right there. That right there.
And so I have been telling people that there's a phrase that FINE stands for.
Oh, what is it? There's a phrase that FINE stands for.
Amped up, insecure, neurotic, and I can't remember the last one, but.
Okay. And everything is fine, probably, right? Because isn't that what we say? Everything's fine. It's fine. I'm fine.
When I have a friend that's going through this walk that I already did, I say to them what my friend said to me. She emailed me and she said, I'm going to tell you what my sister-in-law who had breast cancer before me said to me. Ah, shit. This is horrible.
Yeah.
And you're going to win.
You can still win even if it's horrible.
Yeah. And you're going to win. And I think of all the people that said things to me, her said the most because she'd already done it.
Yes, yes.
She felt that way about her sister-in-law, so I always try to pass that down.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Yes, oh, yes.
Hopefully you can address this.
Yeah.
So I and many others have experienced this. I wasn't able to finish my treatment, my chemo, because of I got pneumonitis in my lungs, so my oncologist said no more. So I never had that closure of finishing my chemo, and then I had radiation. But can you address like maybe some of those things where you didn't get closure on something?
Sure, sure. So do keep in mind however many, again, not a doctor, not saying I'm a doctor, the treatment plans are the best advice for that situation at that time. So however many rounds of chemo, it can be negotiable. And I don't know if that's your situation.
My oncologist assured me I was too short. I mean, it was fine, but I still struggle with like not having.
You didn't get to ring the bell.
Yeah, I didn't get to ring the bell.
Well, you didn't get to ring the bell.
Yeah, you sort of psych yourself up for this is your final day.
Yeah.
And I didn't make it, and I felt like
Oh.
I accomplished.
You should have been able to ring the bell.
Well, I went in for my treatment, and instead they admitted me to the hospital. And it was.
You call them up and you tell them you want to ring the bell.
I mean, maybe that's what but I feel like there are those of us that something happened that it didn't go as we had intended, and I just wondered if you guys had some suggestions of how we could.
Girl, you gotta make your own bell. We can't put that much stock onto their bell. I still think you should have been able to ring the bell. Here's one of my problems when we're looking at something like a treatment plan, and if I'm a good patient and I do all my treatments, I won't have cancer. There's a huge problem with that, though. First, it puts guilt and shame onto you if you're not able to finish. And imagine the guilt and shame that comes when, oh, it didn't work, and you still have cancer, or you get a recurrence. Be like, no, I don't have recurrence because I did all my treatment, right? I'm a good patient, and I behave, and I don't cry, and I don't yell at anyone. So that guilt and shame is huge, and then just the weight that goes into finishing a treatment plan that, it is suggested, but it's not like an absolute often, but it is highly suggested. But now it's just left you feeling empty. So girl, you gotta get your own bell. Yeah, we're gonna ring your bell. Ring-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling, ring your bell. Yeah. I'm sorry for that. I am so sorry, I can't see half the time. Yes, sir, yes.
For people who are interested, there's a really group I found out about, and it's called Mahogany, and it's for a multicultural group with, a lot of women of color, people invisible, and all of the other stuff that goes along with it. But speak with these three women, I had an incredible conversation, and they tapped into a lot of the wisdom that this other, pronounce your name for me again, please? Yeah, that shared with us earlier today. And I just want to say thank you for bringing, this group together, the organizers and everything. It's my first time here, and it's been wonderful to be able to just listen to my voice being expressed back to me in so many wonderful healing ways. And one of the things that I found for my best resource is myself.
True that, yeah, yourself.
And what I learned through that is that I love all of my healthcare providers. I mean, I have been blessed by angels and who knows who else. But when I was diagnosed, I made the intention that I wanted a multicultural team, and I got it.
Wonderful,
I
wonderful.
attracted a tremendous team, and I wouldn't trade my team for anybody. We're kind of like the goats, they call us, the greatest of all time.
Thank you for that. I want to give a shout out. Mahogany, that's the name? Mahogany, back there. Okay. I talk too much. I know that. It's the only thing I got in trouble at school for doing. Oh, so I'm going to have to finish up. Last question. Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes. Interesting. Yeah. Well, isn't that the truth? Yeah. 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 Mm. Absolutely. You feel valued and honored. We all value and honor you guys. So I'll say one last thing and then I'll stop talking, I promise. Well, kudos to you all because you did the first step. You're here. So you're here. So congratulations to you all. You're doing your due diligence. So this is the first step, is being around others who value and honor you. And I think that's how you do it when you're sick of honoring it. You come and you hang out with, we're a fun group. Hang out with us. All right. Thank you. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you today. Okay. Sorry, I talked too much.
Oh, everyone, one more time. Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome. Okay.
So I have a crazy idea. First of all, let's thank Gary, our photographer.
So close.
Or just you draw a name, bring a basket, I'll read it, that person runs it there. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Okay. All right. Don't leave.
Well, if you leave, you don't, and you